Morning, Asaf. Good to have you. Okay, we are learning. We are on Chafaf and Base 26B. Um, the art scroll, it's 26B2 on the bottom of the page, all the way at the end of the Rava. The last thing we had in our Gemara is that the Gemara asked the question that maybe when it says uh, we have a reboot. The Gemara says the Ema, the Rabbos. We had the pasuk said we're talking about Semel Pishtim. We're talking about um, wool and linen. When the Torah says the word beged, what does beged mean? What does the word garment? Does the garment mean? Because garment means specifically wool and linen. We said that the Torah writes the word garment many places, a number of places, does not identify the material of the garment. Let's say al kanfi bidehem, it's about sit on the corner of your garment, doesn't identify what's the material of the garment. And then there was one place the Gemara says the Torah identifies, it says beged semo pishtim. It identifies the garment as the word beged as wool or linen by the story of Sarat, the story of leprosy, which is the goim, which is the contamination of the goim. So the Gemara said that sheds a light to tell us that, morning Simon, that all other places, the word beged, at least according to one opinion, would mean it has to beged means wool and linen. And therefore, when you have other places, let's say by sherets, by let's say the teeming animals, eight shrotzim, like a mouse and other animals, Torah says when they're dead and they come in contact with items that has the ability to contaminate. And so it talks about a garment being contaminated by one of these shrotzim, like a dead mouse touching the garment. That's talking about a garment made out of wool or linen. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Now, and, and according to Abaye, Abaye understands that's not only the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, it's also the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, is in agreement with that opinion. However, Rava disagrees with Abaye, and he says, yes, it's true that Rabbi Yishmael, at least at this point of the Gemara, Rabbi Yishmael holds that beged means wool and linen. However, and therefore, when the Torah says contamination by other items, other garments, and other situations, let's say by a sheretz, by these teeming animals, it also refers to wool and linen. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. However, Rava says that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar would hold that if it's if it's three tfachim by three tfachim, if it's 12 fingers by 12 fingers, a garment that's the size of 12 fingers by 12 fingers, that has the ability to become contaminated. If meaning to say that Rashi says, see, look at Rashi. Right. So therefore he holds that there would be the concept of contamination, that the word beged does not only necessarily mean um, wool and linen. Beged could also mean other types of material, providing that it is three tvachim by three tvachim, providing that it's 12 fingers by 12 fingers. Let's take a look over here. And then the Gemara says that everyone holds that 3 fingers by 3 fingers, when it comes to leprosy, it has the ability to contaminate. 3 fingers, but if you have a piece of material that's only 3 fingers by 3 fingers, it can receive contamination. So the Gemara wants to know, how do you know that? The Gemara says, because we have a pasuk that has vahabeged, the extra vav and the hay of vahabeged comes to teach us that it adds. You don't have to be a full garment. It can even be 3 fingers by 3 fingers. And the Gemara used the Kal V'chomer to teach us that we would know 12 fingers by 12 fingers could receive contamination, because if the warp and the woof threads could receive contamination through leprosy, certainly something that's 12 fingers by 12 fingers, which is actually woven, would receive contamination. And therefore, when the Torah goes ahead and it says, adds that there's something else that receives contamination, that's even 3 fingers by 3 fingers will receive contamination of leprosy. But that's all specific if it's a garment made out of wool and linen. Now, the Gemara then had a question. The Gemara's question had, how do we know that it's coming to include that this vav and the hay, when it comes to contamination by leprosy, a garment that receives contamination has spot, has a certain color spot, discoloration. How do we know that the vav and the hay is coming to tell us specifically wool and linen garments receive contamination when it comes to leprosy? Maybe a discoloring even on non-wool and linen garments. Maybe the vav and the hay is coming to include a garment that's other material, that's, let's say, cotton, a cotton shirt, let's say, that's 12 fingers by 12 fingers. Maybe the pasuk by leprosy is coming to teach us that even that type of garment could receive contamination, a 12-finger garment by 12-finger garment. So the Gemara says, that's what we ended of last week. The Gemara says, there's trei miutik k'tivei. There's two psukim that are excluding other materials by leprosy. What are the 2 psukim that exclude by leprosy? Because there's 2 psukim that says the words beged and it says semo pishtim. It says in the parsha, when it talks about leprosy on a garment, it says beged ki yibon negat sarat, a garment that has leprosy, beged semo beged pishtim. So the Torah clearly identifies the garment that receives contamination as a garment made out of wool or linen. And then at the end of the parsha by leprosy, it says, Zo Torah Nega. These are after it tells us the laws of leprosy, it says, these are the laws of Nega. Beged atzemo pishtim. Again, it emphasizes beged, Simon, Asaf, wool and linen. So therefore, the Torah is very clear when it comes to leprosy, that leprosy, the only thing that will receive contamination by leprosy is wool and linen. That seems to be, the Torah goes out of its way by leprosy to teach us that halacha. Now, I just want to take a look at Rava's opinion. Okay. So therefore, at the end of the day, it seems like we have, when it comes to leprosy, the garment of leprosy, the Torah is very specific. It has 2 miutim, 2 miutim. It's come in each, and the fact that it has 2 miutim, 2 exclusion, and what is the Gemara says? Chad lemutim misholosh al shalosh. 1 is coming to exclude a garment the size of 3 fingers by 3 fingers, and 1 is even coming to exclude a garment that's 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. Because once we have the vahabeged, the vav and the hay, that includes, when it's leprosy, a 3-finger garment by a 3 finger. We said 3 fingers is much smaller, right? 3 fingers by 3 fingers. much smaller than this. I mean, not much, but than 11, than 12 fingers by 12 fingers. So now that a wool and linen garment that's 3 fingers a patch could receive contamination, how do we know that it won't apply to other materials? So the fact that the Torah is very specific, wool and linen, by leprosy twice, it's emphasizing it's excluding a 3 finger by 3 finger patch made out of cotton, and not only a 3 finger by 3 finger patch made out of cotton, but 12 finger, 12 finger, 3 tvachim made out of cotton will not receive contamination. So that's where we're holding at this point of our Gemara. We have a disagreement between Abaye and Rava by other forms of contamination, not if it's not if other forms of contamination, let's say not by leprosy. Let's talk about by a dead body coming in contact under the same roof with a garment made out of cotton, or whether it's morning,
Rabbi.
Ralph, or maybe it's a dead mouse, not coming in contact with a cotton garment. That according to Rava, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, these items could receive contamination. Okay, so now we have the Gemara with that backdrop. We're on 26b 2. So the Gemara says, Ula Rava di Oma, Shlosha al Shlosha b'shar begodim. Rava says that 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim by other garments would receive contamination. Let's see over here. So Rava, who says that you have a garment that's 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, 12 fingers by 12 fingers. If it's shar begodim, if it's other materials, ikebenayu, that it can receive contamination, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar holds, is itle. He holds that other garments can receive contamination, and Tana debe Rabbi Yishmael letle. Rabbi Yishmael holds that other garments cannot receive contamination. Rabbi Yishmael is wool and linen all the way. If you're not wool and linen, you're not receiving contamination. Morning at it. It has to be wool and linen. However, Rava understands, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar holds, it doesn't have to be wool and linen. Wool and linen is maybe unique regarding if it's leprosy, it can even receive contamination of 3 fingers by 3 fingers. But wool and linen is not the only thing that can receive contamination. You could have a cotton garment that can receive contamination. You could have other materials that can receive contamination, provided they have a certain size, 12 fingers by 12 fingers. The Gemara wants to know, Minolan, where is his source? Where is his source that other types of materials, good morning, Adam, how does he know that other types of materials you can receive contamination even though you're not wool and linen? We already have, by the laws of leprosy, the Torah established, that says the word garment, and emphasized very clearly that garment means wool and linen. It went out of its way. So where does he know that you can even include other types of materials? If the Torah tells us by leprosy, and the Torah told us that when mentions the word garment, beged, and identifies it very clearly as wool and linen, and identifies it very double time, it mentions it twice, wool and linen over there, and it's excluding other materials, whether you're a small size of other materials, even a large size of other materials. So where does he know why don't we say that is a what we call a mamatzinu, the binyan av? That should be a source for all other laws of contamination. But other situations of contamination should mirror the laws of leprosy, that just as by leprosy, we find it has to be wool and linen. So let's learn out all other cases of contamination also has to be wool or linen, that a garment to receive contamination, when the Torah talks about for dead bodies in a tent, anything that's under the roof, all the utensils on the roof, all the garments on the roof to receive contamination, maybe it has to be wool and linen, just like by leprosy it has to be wool and linen. And when a dead mouse touches a garment, maybe it also has to be wool and linen, just like leprosy is wool and linen. So the Gemara says no. Minola, how does he know it? Nafkele may o beged. He has an extra word in the Torah. When the Torah talks about a sheretz, a teeming animal coming in contact with a dead mouse or something like that, coming in contact with a garment, the Torah writes the word obeged. It says, any wooden utensil that comes in contact with these dead teeming animals, or any garment or any leather. So the pasuk could have said, kol kli'etz ubeged. Didn't have to say the word o. The pasuk could have said, and since it did not need to say the word o, it has this extra word. There's no extra letter in the Torah. There's no extra word in the Torah. So that's when we're at the top of the page of 27a. So that extra O is coming to tell us, it says, or a garment, and it didn't need to say it that way. The Tanya, beged, ein li ela beged, shlosha shlosha. It says the word beged. I would have said that you have to be shlosha shlosha. Ein li ela beged. Beged implies a full garment, a total garment. The garment, not a half a garment, not a piece of it, not a 12 fingers by 12 fingers. That's not a full garment. Let's say 12 inches by 12 inches or whatever that is. That's not a full garment. How do you know that even something which is not a full garment is subject to contamination? Ein li ela beged, shlosha shlosha. Bishar bigodim minayin. How do you know? Meaning the word, but here the Gemara makes it say like this: Ein li ela beged. If from the word beged we know wool and linen, similar to beged that's written by leprosy, right? Leprosy, we already established the word garment. Beged means wool and linen. So now when the Gemara says beged, ein li ela beged, the word beged only implies wool and linen. Shlosha b'shar begodim minayin. How do we know 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim in other types of material, not wool and linen, also receive contamination? Tamaloma o beged. The fact that it says o beged, the extra o is coming to teach us, or is coming to teach us even other materials not specific to wool and linen. I mean, if a Torah would just say the word beged is wool and linen, o beged is coming to add that it's even something else that's not even in addition to a garment, there's something else that also would be in addition to wool and linen. What's the addition to wool and linen? Other types of materials. So the Gemara says, Abaye, hi obeged my overlay. Abaye understands that there is nothing coming to add other types of garments. It's the only thing that could receive contamination across the board in different cases of contamination is only wool and linen. But what does he do with this extra O? The Torah does not write an extra anything extra. So the other rabbi Rava says, oh, it's adding, or it's coming to add something else in addition to wool and linen. But Abaye does not hold anything in addition to wool and linen. So what does he come? What does he do with it? Coming to include that something is 3 fingers by 3 fingers that's made out of wool and linen, the metame bishvatzim, that it could receive contamination by these teeming animals like a mouse, that type of thing. What does that mean? Meaning, we've established, let's say, that we needed a special teaching when it came to leprosy, that if you have a patch the size of 3 fingers by 3 fingers, 3 fingers by 3 fingers, it's not such a wide patch, it receives contamination, even though it's so a small amount of material, which we said that amount of material is generally used by a poor person will save that amount of material. A wealthy person would throw it out. So we need a special pasuk to tell us that even that amount would receive contamination. But that there's a special pasuk by leprosy. But how do we know that that will also be true when it comes to a mouse touches the garment? Meaning leprosy is leprosy. Maybe there's a difference. We'll see how the Gemara is going to work it out. Maybe there's a difference between leprosy and other forms of contamination. And there's going to be a reason why you can't learn one from the other. Because you could say, what do you mean? If the Torah reveals to us by leprosy that a garment, even the size of 3 fingers by 3 fingers, made out of wool and linen, could receive contamination, there should be the same thing by other forms of contamination, by a dead teeming animal like a mouse. Why don't we say the same, just like over there, 3 fingers by 3 fingers, here also 3 fingers by 3 fingers? But Abaye is saying, no, I would not be able to learn the story of a dead mouse touching a garment from a leprosy going in the garment. And therefore he says, I need the extra obeged by the mouse story to enlighten us about 3 finger by 3 finger. I mean, by the way, this is very complicated stuff, everybody. We're trying to get our feet wet a little bit over here, right? So that is Abaye's position. I need this extra word to tell us that even by a mouse, even if it's the size of a patch made out of wool and linen, also receive contamination. That's what he does with the extra. That the Torah is telling us something extra. The question is, what does the extra word come to teach us? Rava says, Rav Shimon ben Elazar says it's coming to teach us even other materials can receive contamination. That's what the addition is, not only limited to wool and linen. And Abaye says, no, it's coming to tell us something else, that even a small 3 finger by 3 finger by a mouse would also receive contamination. So the Gemara says, and what is that? That's what Abaye says. Abaye, 3 lines from the top. Coming to include 3 fingers by 3 fingers by wool and linen, that will receive contamination by these teeming animals like a mouse. The Rava says, I don't need it for that. Rava says, so once the Torah reveals us by leprosy that 3 finger by 3 finger receive contamination made of wool and linen, I already will know the law by the teeming animals. I don't need it for that. If I don't need it for that, so it's extra. So what does it come and tell us? Other types of materials can receive contamination. Abaye, no. Abaye says, no, you can't learn one from the other. Because you could ask, you could say, when it comes to leprosy, the Torah is very strict. Even the warp and the woof threads, the threads that go lengthwise and widthwise, before you even wove them, they can receive, those threads could if they get a discoloring, they receive contamination when it comes to leprosy, but which does not apply by a dead mouse touching those threads. They will not make those threads contaminated through a dead mouse, or make it contaminated through leprosy, discoloring. So leprosy is more strict. So maybe that's why there is this even contamination by 3 finger by 3 finger, but you can't learn out the mouse, which is not as strict. The idach, and the other rabbi shoots back. If you're correct that you can't learn one from the other, then if you think that leprosy is more strict than the mouse, so why does the Torah have to tell us both by leprosy and both by the mouse? That even a 3 finger by 3 finger. Just tell me by the mouse, 3 fingers by 3 fingers will receive contamination, and I'd automatically know by leprosy. Because if leprosy is more strict than a mouse contamination, and if mouse contamination could even be on 3 finger by 3 fingers, certainly leprosy. So I wouldn't need both. I wouldn't need both psukim. I don't need the vav and the hey of vehabeged by leprosy and o beged by mouse. Just say it by the mouse to tell us even 3 fingers, and I'll know leprosy. And therefore, the fact that the Torah didn't do it that way shows you can't learn one from the other, and therefore it's not the way you. So again, Abaye says that you can't learn one from the other, and Rava shoots back. If you're correct, if you think that one is more strict than the other, so then the Torah should have just written by leprosy, by the mouse, and I would automatically and I will be able to learn leprosy from there. So now that the Torah writes it in both places, so therefore it's not coming the way you understand, and rather Rava says that it writes it in one place is coming to teach us that 3 fingers by 3 fingers, and that will be enough to learn and you're able to learn out from there. You're able to learn out from the leprosy, to also you can learn out the other case by the mouse. You can learn one from the other, and therefore the extra word of O is coming to include other materials. So the Gemara says either, and what does Abaye shoot back? Abaye says no, I can't learn. I would not be able to learn the leprosy from the mouse case. I need to write it by both cases. Abaye shoots back, because there's something about the mouse that's more strict than leprosy. Why? Shrotzim, the size of a sheret, the size of a dead mouse that has the ability to contaminate is different than the size of a discoloring of leprosy. Leprosy has to be the size, let's say we call it, of a bean or a gris. And sherets is the size of a lentil. There are different types of beans. So over here they say the following. They say let's see what they say about the different sizes. Did we? I think we might have skipped the line here in the Gemara. No, we didn't skip it. So he says, an adosha, a lentil, how many? Let's see how they say over here. It's much less. A lentil is much less than a size of a gris. Did they say how big is the lentil compared to the gris? They say over here. Yeah, so he says it's a gris is the size of 9 adoshim. So when it comes to leprosy, it's 9 times the size that's required by the teeming animals, but than the size of the mouse. So they say over here that a lentil, this lentil that we're talking about, no, so they say mint kidneys, so the size of the bean equal, it looks like it takes up 36. Okay, whatever the exact size, but the bottom line is the when it comes to leprosy, it's less of a size. Again, less. Let's make it clear. There's a stringency by the mouse. How much of the mouse, a piece of a mouse, right? And what's the size of the mouse that would be able to contaminate the the garment? You have to have the size of a mouse that's the size of a bean, which is much. Okay, sorry, the size of a dosha, of a lentil, which as we said is much less, right? We said there's nine. What did we just say? That we know by leprosy is very clear. It has to be a gris. When it comes to the teeming animals, the morning, let's say like the mouse, the size of the mouse would be much smaller. You got that? Adam, you see do you see what does it say over there in your commentary over there? Right? When it comes to sherets, when it comes to the teeming animals, if you look at 27A1 on the right side, for indeed a carcass of a sheretz, only the size of a lentil could contaminate. But the case of saras lacks its potency because saras needs a much larger, equal the size of a bean, and the bean is 9 times. See note number 15 is 9 times the size of a lentil. So therefore, that being that there is a stringency about the teeming animals, about the mouse. There's something more strict about the mouse even than leprosy. See, if the Torah would write the law by a mouse, you would not be able to learn. Look who's here, Mazel Tov. To see Avi is here. Rachim habaim. It's great to see Avi is here. Welcome back. That's great. So if the Torah would write one from you, would not be able to learn one from the other because each one has a stringency that the other one doesn't have. And because each one has a stringency that the other one doesn't have, so therefore, we can't, if the Torah would write a law of 3 fingers by one of them, you would not be able to learn the other one out from it. Because we would say only that one, because that has a unique stringency that the other one doesn't have. Therefore, Abaye says we need to write by both. Writing by one would not be, even if you can't just write by the mouse and I'll automatically learn the other one from it, but the mouse story has something more stringent than the other case. So that's what he says. And Amar Abaye. So Abaye says, Hi Tana de Rabbi Yishmael. Now Abaye is going to say now, what we're going to get to tomorrow. Before you know it, we're going to. This is it's been a very long discussion about the garment. We're going to see that there's going to be another Rabbi Yishmael, which seemingly is arguing on the first statement of Rabbi Yishmael of the Yeshiva B'nai Yisrael. We'll see tomorrow how to deal with those two opinions. Very complicated. Hang in there a little bit longer. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, everybody. Okay. All the best, everybody. Ralph, heavy stuff, Ralph. Okay, we'll get there, Ralph. Maybe read it over a little bit, Ralph. Ralph, maybe read it a little bit, okay? Prepare a little bit. Have a great day. Take care, Saf. Thank you.